Welcome back to my channel. This video is going to be quite different than usual. That's not good for my algorithm, but then I never cared about that. I just talk about things I think are important or interesting, usually trying to point out things that many miss. As I've said, I was a band director and had a lot of experiences with what you might call the system of education. I happen to think I make a good judge because I not only wanted what was best for my students and my program, but I also cared about what was fair for everyone. So maybe I'm just a bit less biased than most teachers. I'm going to talk about things you might consider if you would like your child to go to a good college with a bit of extra emphasis on medical school. You may be surprised at what matters. Lots of people think that more academics are better. So let me relate my experiences with this attitude. I had a middle school principal tell me that the next year they were dropping all the exploratory classes like home economics, art, general music, etc., though band would still exist. This was because the high school English teachers were telling him that the incoming freshmen couldn't do high school level work. Therefore, he was dropping the exploratory classes so that the English classes could be double the normal length. The only reason band classes were kept was because we had a very successful band and lots of parents would fight any effort to end the program. So only the band students would work under a normal schedule. They ran this double English schedule for years until, happily, they decided to resume exploratory classes and return to the traditional normal English class. But after doing this for just 1 year, the principal told me they had to go back to the double English class. When I asked why, he said, "The high school English teachers told me that ever since we returned to the normal schedule, the incoming freshmen couldn't do high school level work." Well, I started laughing, which didn't seem to please the principal. Can you guess why I found it funny? The principal couldn't understand, so I told him the obvious. That is, that we had only gone back to a normal English class for 1 year. None of those students had gone to high school yet. Therefore, nothing we changed could possibly have affected the high school. Therefore, the high school teachers were really admitting that even with the double-length English classes, the students still couldn't do high school English. I also told him the problem wasn't a lack of time anyway. So he asked me what the problem was, and I told him his English teachers were lazy. They had no serious standards for the kids, and instead of teaching more English during that double period, they just used the additional time as a study hall. When it came to English, things were bad. For example, students were never assigned a book to read outside of class. When I asked the students about being assigned reading from their class literature book for homework, which would then be discussed the next day, they said they only read during the class itself, which also means less actual teaching. No wonder they did poorly. Another middle school where I worked didn't cut exploratory classes, but they shortened them along with other academic classes, so they could also have double English. This was because the statewide tests for 8th graders the prior year were so bad in English at our school. When the new test came out for the new year, our principal was very happy that the English scores had gone up from the year before. But I looked up the record of both groups the last time they were tested in 5th grade. Turns out the prior group was much worse than usual in 5th grade, and so were also poor in 8th grade. Meanwhile, the new 8th graders were better than usual in 5th grade, so of course they did better in 8th grade as well. So did the extra English help? Probably not, because in comparing the scores to what they were in 5th grade, they only improved an average of 1 point. Statistically, pretty meaningless. It just wasn't worth hurting the other classes to provide extra English. Which brings me to a high school counselor telling upcoming freshman band members to quit band and take extra science courses. Of course, this was terrible for band. With a supposed expert telling parents to take their kids out of band, many would. So I contacted various colleges and universities, some very highly ranked. I specifically asked them how they would view two students who had the same grades in the same subjects, except one student took band in high school and the other student took extra science classes instead. In every case, they said two key things. One was that the band student would be considered every bit as good as the academically focused student, and that they weren't looking for students who just did academics. They wanted well-rounded students, like those in band. I don't recall all the schools I contacted, but they included the University of Georgia, Georgia Tech, and Emory, which is a prestigious medical school. I also talked to college officials from a school in Pennsylvania which specialized in preparing students for medical school. I forget the name, but they told me that almost all their students chose to be in band. They gave two reasons. One was that it helped them relieve stress. The other was that it was great for learning to work as a team, something the medical field requires more and more. Let me take a short aside from academics and give a completely different situation. This is just a report of one person, but he actually lived it. It was one of my band parents who had been a fighter pilot. He told me when he was in flight school, the best pilots were those who had been in band. He also said that when doing formation flying, everyone wanted to fly with them. He pointed out that some otherwise good pilots just weren't very good at formation flying, and that was a problem. Also dangerous. I can only guess at why. It may have been that musicians already work as a team at a high level to make music. They have to be well aware of how their part fits in with everyone else. And then there is the marching band, where you have to be very aware of your exact position to the inch, as well as where the people are around you. Perhaps that experience gives an advantage when you need the same skills in formation flying. Or maybe his experience was just an unusual one, but it is certainly worth consideration. But just for fun, I'll throw in the fact that the famous test pilot, Chuck Yeager, the first man to break the sound barrier, and whose story is a big part of the movie The Right Stuff, played trombone in his high school band. But now let's look more specifically at the matter of wanting your child to be a doctor. More science would seem to be logical, certainly more so than being in band, but it's not necessarily so. There was a study done by Dr. Lewis Thomas, who is connected to the Rockefeller Institute. His research showed that 66% of music majors who applied to medical school were accepted, compared to about 44% of biochemistry majors. Not exactly what you would expect, is it? Now, to be fair, far more biochemistry majors apply than music majors do. And one theory is that it is just the best of the music majors. Could be true, but I haven't seen anything that shows that is the case. It could also be argued that people who have, for their entire college career or longer, plan to go to medical school would be particularly strong in that area, yet they were accepted at a lower rate. More recent data from the Association of American Medical Colleges places the gap now at more like 52% to 42% in favor of music majors over biological science majors. Why? Well, the part of the medical college admission test scores where these music students particularly excel is what is called the Critical Analysis and Reasoning Skills section, often referred to as CARS, which just happens to be the part that is least subject to the ability to just memorize facts. This part of the test shows innate critical thinking and the ability to process complex information. While most pre-med students can study their way to a high score in chemistry or biology through memorization, the CARS section requires the analysis and structural thinking that is fundamental in a music degree. But those majoring in the humanities, of which music is part, tend to also score higher in the biological sciences section than biology majors themselves. Medical school officials view music and humanities majors as desirable candidates because of the breadth of experience and disciplined mindset these students bring over a student who is just focused on science. One admissions official after another has told me they want well-rounded students. There are other factors favoring music students. There is a matter of discipline and attention to detail. Music is one of the few majors that requires a public, high-stakes demonstration of mastery every semester with recitals, juries, parades, marching shows, etc. So music students are more likely to have lower test anxiety and be better able to handle criticism. How about manual dexterity? Surgeons note that the fine motor skills and muscle memory developed through years of instrumental practice translate directly to the operating room. Admissions officials also know a music major schedule is often more grueling than a science major's and proves a music major can handle the heavy load of medical school. Let me elaborate on that a bit more. If you're under a semester system in college, the typical load is 16 hours. For a major academic course like English, science, history, etc., it counts 3 credit hours and the class meets 3 hours a week. It was a pretty simple system to understand. But courses for music majors can be quite different. To give you all the classes you need, they don't count them the same. While American literature gets 3 credits for 3 hours a week in class, music literature only receives 2 credits for the same class time. Likewise with music history compared to any other history course. And how about band class? That was a 1-hour course, but the actual class time was 3 hours a week. Just those items gave me 21 fewer credits than would have been received for the same class time in other majors. But it gets worse. In the fall, you had marching band, which was still just 1 hour credit for 3 class hours. But you also spent many hours outside of class practicing the halftime show. I'm not even counting the hours spent performing for football games, exhibitions, parades, and concerts. And I'm still not done. While most subjects have some amount of homework, to do your part in band, you could expect to spend more hours each day on your own practice, far more than other homework. So while we officially had 128 hours to graduate like everyone else, both our class time and out-of-class work time was far more than what other courses required. Going back to the issue of medical school, how about clinical excellence? Admission committees found musical training led to better patient-centered care because musicians are trained in active listening and picking up on subtle nonverbal cues, critical for both chamber music and medical diagnostics. While a science major proves they can understand the material of med school, the music major proves they have the discipline to master a craft, the emotional intelligence to relate to patients, and the critical thinking to excel on the medical college admissions test. One more factor you might keep in mind: almost every subject you take in school focuses on things the left side of the brain is best at. But band also draws heavily on the right side. You wouldn't want your kid to be a half-wit, would you? So if you want your child to excel in school, a subject like band may be particularly useful in developing the total brain. Thanks for watching, and don't let the trolls stop you from speaking out.